He's looking for diamonds in the rough. With Lee Cowan, meet American Picker.
Have you ever had one of those friendships that feels like it'll last forever, only to watch it crumble under the weight of fame and fortune? For over a decade, the world watched one of the greatest partnerships in reality TV history. Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz, the treasure-hunting duo of American Pickers, weren't just co-hosts. They were brothers of the road, two guys in a white cargo van who shared a passion for rust and a bond that felt unbreakable. They finished each other's sentences, shared inside jokes, and invited millions of us along for the ride, but then, one day, the ride just stopped. Frank Fritz vanished from our screens, and the silence that followed was deafening. It was soon replaced by rumors and a public feud that shattered the show's wholesome image. Fans were left with one burning question: what on earth happened? The search for answers has been a long road, full of heartbreaking twists and carefully worded statements that only hinted at a more painful truth. For years, fans have debated who was to blame for the breakdown of this iconic duo. Now, after all the speculation, the full story is finally coming to light. And through his actions, his public statements, and his final, gut-wrenching goodbyes, Mike Wolfe has shown the world who, or what, he truly holds responsible for the end of American Pickers as we knew it. The answer is not what you think. Before the bright lights of Hollywood ever found them, Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz were just two guys from Iowa who loved junk. Their story didn't begin on a TV set. It began in middle school and was forged over decades of shared passion. Mike was the visionary, a picker since he was a kid, pulling old bikes out of the trash and seeing gold. Frank was his perfect counterpart, the lovable, down-to-earth curmudgeon with an encyclopedic knowledge of antique toys and oil cans. Their friendship was built on a mutual obsession with uncovering forgotten history, long before any camera crew was there to document it. When Mike first pitched the idea for American Pickers, a lot of people didn't get it. But Frank did. He was the one person who didn't make fun of Mike for dreaming of turning their hobby into a show. That shared belief was the bedrock of what was to come. When the show premiered in 2010, its success was instant and explosive. It became one of the History Channel's most popular programs, and the reason was simple: authenticity. The chemistry between Mike and Frank was undeniable because it was real. We weren't watching actors, we were watching two best friends live out their dream. Their dynamic was the heart of the show. Mike was the charismatic leader, always pushing to go a few more miles down a dirt road, convinced the next great find was just over the hill. Frank was his grounding force, the bearded charmer, who could connect with even the most reclusive collectors with his easygoing nature. And holding it all together from back home in Iowa was Danielle Colby, the tattooed queen of their operation, who wasn't just an employee but a vital part of their chosen family. For over 200 episodes, they were an inseparable team. They drove tens of thousands of miles a year, sharing that white van, discovering pieces of Americana, and sharing their lives with each other. They found Aerosmith's original tour van, a discovery that made international headlines. They unearthed rare motorcycles, priceless folk art, and the stories of the people who owned them. This was the golden age, a time when the friendship felt bigger than the show, and no one could have imagined the tarnish that was about to form. As the show's popularity soared, the simple road trip between friends began to change. The grueling production schedule, keeping them on the road for most of the year, started to take its toll. The easy camaraderie was now under the immense pressure of being a global TV phenomenon. What was once a passion project had become a high-stakes business, and with that shift, the first cracks in their brotherhood appeared. The initial catalyst was something beyond anyone's control: Frank's health. For years, he had quietly battled Crohn's disease, a chronic inflammatory condition that made the relentless travel incredibly difficult. Then came a major back surgery, an event that would mark his final appearance on the show in March 2020. His departure was initially seen as temporary medical leave, but as the months dragged on, the American Pickers machine kept rolling, with Mike often accompanied by his brother, Robbie. For fans, This was the first sign that something was seriously wrong. It was during this time that the cracks widened into a chasm. Frank, watching the show continue without him, felt sidelined. He later revealed in a bombshell interview with The Sun that he felt the show had become tilted towards Mike 1000%. He used a powerful analogy. It's like you've got Aerosmith and there's Steven Tyler and he's the frontman. I found my spot, I'm second and he's number one on the show. That's no problem with me. Maybe he does have a problem. This feeling of being a sidekick, not a partner, had clearly been simmering. According to Frank, the silence from his old friend was the final straw. He was hurt that Mike, a man he'd known for 40 years, allegedly never called to check on him after his back surgery. He knew my back was messed up, but he didn't call me up and ask how I was doing, Frank stated. That's just how it is. From an outside perspective, the damage was done. Private pain was about to become very public. For over a year, fans were left to speculate. Then, in July 2021, the speculation ended. Frank Fritz broke his silence, confirming the fanbase's worst fears. The beloved partnership was officially a feud. In that same stunning interview with The Sun, he dropped the line that echoed across social media. I haven't talked to Mike in 2 years. The revelation was a gut punch to viewers. Frank laid his frustrations bare, painting a picture of a friendship lost to fame and neglect. His narrative was one of abandonment. To Frank, Mike's silence felt like a betrayal. In the wake of Frank's claims, the pressure turned to Mike. His initial response was a carefully crafted statement, saying, I have known Frank for as long as I can remember, he's been like a brother to me. I will miss Frank, just like all of you, and I pray for the very best and all good things for him on the next part of his journey. Frank reportedly called the statement bull, claiming somebody else wrote it for Mike. The public statement did little to quell the fire. Adding another layer was Danielle Colby. She finally broke her silence on Instagram with a heartbreaking and revealing post. While expressing sadness over Frank's struggles, she also made a pointed comment about accountability. I wish things could have been different, but we must be accountable for our actions when we cause instability or pain and suffering to others, she wrote. She continued, Frank caused so much pain for himself that it has been hard to watch. I truly hope Frank receives all the help he needs to become well after years of being unwell. Her post was the first public acknowledgement from inside the Pickers circle that Frank's issues ran deeper, alluding to his long-documented battles with alcohol. The final nail in the coffin for many fans was the decision to effectively replace Frank with Mike's brother, Robbie Wolfe. To a portion of the audience, replacing a brother like Frank with a literal one felt like a deep personal slight. The battle lines were drawn, the public feud painted a grim picture, but behind the headlines, a far more serious tragedy was unfolding. In July 2022, the drama took a devastating turn when Frank Fritz suffered a massive stroke. The news was broken not by a tabloid, but by Mike Wolfe himself. In a raw and emotional Instagram post, Mike put the acrimony aside. He wrote, There has been lots of opinions in regards to mine and Frank's friendship and the show, but now is not the time to set the record straight. Now is the time to pray for my friend. He concluded with a simple plea, Frank, I pray more than anything that you make it through this okay. I love you, buddy. This was a world away from the formal statement issued a year prior. It was a clear signal that beneath the anger, the deep bond they had shared for 40 years was still there. And it wasn't just for public show. In the months that followed, reports quietly emerged that the two had indeed reconciled. A friend of Frank's told the Quad City Times that the two had an emotional reunion over Memorial Day weekend in 2023, with both men in tears. According to the source, Mike told his old friend, Nobody can replace you, Frank. They had reportedly buried the hatchet, not for the cameras, but as a private act of forgiveness. Frank's health, however, never fully recovered from the stroke, which was later cited as a result of cerebral vascular disease. His battle was long and arduous, and he was placed under a conservatorship to manage his affairs. Then, on September 30, 2024, the news every fan had dreaded finally arrived. Frank Fritz passed away at the age of 60. Once again, it was Mike who delivered the heartbreaking news. In a tribute filled with sorrow, he wrote, "I've known Frank for more than half my life, and what you've seen on TV has always been what I have seen, a dreamer who was just as sensitive as he was funny." In a poignant revelation, it was later confirmed by friends and Mike himself that he was there with Frank in his final moments. "I just told him that I wasn't mad at him and that I loved him and that I cared about him so much," Mike recalled of their final conversation. This devastating final chapter put the entire feud into a new, heartbreaking perspective. Frank's tragic passing cast a long, somber shadow over the American Pickers saga. It reframes years of feuding and forces us back to the central question: who did Mike Wolfe finally name as the one who ruined American Pickers? If you're looking for a single name, you won't find one. Mike never publicly blamed a specific person. The truth, revealed through his actions, is far more complex and tragic. He never pointed the finger at a person. Instead, his journey points to a collection of inescapable, heartbreaking circumstances. The first culprit seems to be the relentless machine of reality TV itself. As the creator of a hit, Mike faced immense pressure to keep producing content. The franchise employed hundreds, and that machine couldn't stop even when one of its core components, his best friend, was breaking down. The ruin wasn't caused by a person, but by the pressure to keep the show on the road, a pressure that led to Mike announcing the show's first real hiatus in 15 years in the spring of 2025. The second, and most significant, factor was illness, in all its forms. Frank's battle with Crohn's was relentless. But it was his struggle with addiction that appears to have caused the deepest rift. After Frank's passing, Mike opened up, stating that Frank became addicted to opioids following his back surgery, and that's when everything changed. Danielle's pained words about Frank needing help after years of being unwell underscore this reality. Mike explained his ability to forgive by saying, "I knew it wasn't him talking. It was his addiction talking." The blame, then, wasn't on Frank, but on the devastating nature of addiction. Finally, Mike seemed to blame the painful drifting apart that can happen when a friendship is placed under the strain of business and fame. Their dynamic changed from two equals in a van to a relationship with a perceived power imbalance. Frank felt it, calling the show "tilted." It's a classic, cautionary tale. The passion that brought them together was twisted by success into something that drove them apart. So, who ruined American Pickers? According to the evidence, the answer is no one and everyone. It was ruined by the weight of fame, the brutal reality of chronic illness and addiction, and the slow erosion of a friendship. Mike's actions, his public plea for prayer, their private reconciliation, and his presence at his friend's deathbed, show he never truly blamed Frank. He blamed the tragedy of it all. The villain wasn't a picker. It was the perfect storm of circumstances that turned a dream into a nightmare. The journey of Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz is a modern American tragedy. It's a story that began with two friends, a van, and a shared dream. For a decade, we were lucky enough to ride along, captivated by a genuine bond that was the true heart of American Pickers. That we watched as life chipped away at that friendship. We saw it fracture under the weight of illness, addiction, and fame. But the final chapter is not one of bitterness. It is one of forgiveness and love. The fact that they found their way back to each other, that Mike was by his friend's side at the end, speaks volumes. It confirms the brotherhood, though deeply wounded, was never truly broken. The ruin of the original American Pickers wasn't a malicious betrayal. It was a slow decay caused by the complexities of life. It's a powerful tale about what can be lost when passion becomes a business. The rusted treasures they pulled from barns were never the real find. The real treasure was the friendship we all got to witness. And while that friendship was challenged and ultimately cut short by tragedy, its conclusion proves it was never truly lost. What are your favorite memories of Mike and Frank on American Pickers? Share their best moments in the comments below. And if you appreciate deep dives into the real stories behind your favorite shows, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching.